Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to discuss to you what are absolute coordinates in AutoCAD. So before that, we're going to discuss first the important points that we need to remember in dealing with the coordinates. So in AutoCAD, we have here an image for the Cartesian plane, which is composed of the x-axis and y-axis. So the x-axis is the horizontal axis of your Cartesian plane, while the y-axis is the vertical axis of your Cartesian plane. So this Cartesian plane is divided into 4 quadrants. So the first quadrant is composed of positive x and positive y values. Quadrant 2 is composed of negative x and positive y values. Quadrant 3, we have a negative x and negative y values. And quadrant 4 has a positive x and negative y values. So now, for the x-axis, so the movement for your x is left or right. And a movement to the right signifies a positive number. So if there is a movement to the right, we are going to use positive number. But if the movement is to the left, then we are going to use a negative number. Right? For the y-axis, so there is a downward or upward movement. So for your y, if there is an upward movement, then we are going to use a positive number. But if the movement is downward, then we are going to use a negative number. So to better understand what are absolute coordinates, let's try to solve an example. So we have here an object. So in this object is composed with its distance and corresponding points. So we are going to use these measurements in order to locate the missing location of different points. So the starting point, which is located at point A, is already given, which is -2, -1. So both x and y has a negative values. So it means the starting point is located at quadrant 3. Alright, so now we are going to look for the value of point B. So from point A to B. So as we can see, there is an upward movement. Alright, so upward movement is for y-axis. It means positive number. So there is no movement to the left or to the right. It means the value of your x will remain -2. Alright, so we will just copy the value of your x, which is -2. And now we are going to look for the value of y. So the current value from point A is -1. And there is an upward movement from A to B. And the value is 2. So again, if it is upward, we are going to use positive. So we are going to add 2 for the current value, which is -1. So we are going to add -1, which is the current value. And the distance from A to B is 2. So we have here +2. The answer is +1. So the value for your y-axis is +1. Alright. So next, from point B to point C. So as we can see, there is a movement to the right. Right? So the value of your x-axis will change. And there is no movement which is upward or downward. So it means we will just copy the value of your y, which is +1. Right? So we will just compute for the value of x. So the current value is -2. So from B to C, we are moving to the right. And the distance from B to C is, we have here, 0.8. So we are going to add 0.8 with -2. Alright, so we have here -2 plus 0.8. So the new value for your x is -1.2, right? negative 1.2. So this is now the location of your point C. Now, let's try to look for the value of point D. So from C to D, as you can see, there is a movement to the right, and there is also an upward movement. So this signifies that the value of x and y changes, right? So let's try to answer first the x value, so which is moving to the right. So a movement to the right, it means we are going to add the distance. So the distance from C to D to the right is 1.0607. And the current value of your x is negative 1.2. So we are going to add negative 1.2 with 1.0607. And the answer is negative 0.1393. So this is your value for your point D. Negative 0.1393. So for the y-axis, so from C to D, we are moving upward. So again, we are going to use positive number. And the distance from C to D, which is upward, is 1.0607. So we are going to add this 1.0607 with the current value, which is 1. So 1 plus 1.0607 is equal to 2.0607. Right? So we have now the value of our point D, which is this. Now, we are going to look for the value of E. So from D to E, we have a movement to the right. As you can see, we move to the right. So it means the value of x will be added with positive number. So there is also a downward movement. So it means we are going to subtract the distance with the y-axis. Right, let's look for the x-axis first. So from D to E, we move with 1.0607. So the current value of your x is negative 0.1393. So we are going to add here 1.0607. And the new value is 0.9214. So this is your value for your x, 0.9214. So next, we're going to look for the value of y. So from D to E, we move downward. So if it is downward, we're going to subtract that distance to the current distance, which is 2.0607. And we are going to subtract the 1.0607 distance because the movement is downward. So subtract 1.0607. So the answer is positive 1. So we have here 1. Alright, next, we are going to look for the value of f. So from point E to F, we move to the right. So there is a change in the value of your x because we move to the right, and it is in positive number. So there is no upward or downward movement, so we will just copy the value of y, which is 1. Right? So to compute, the current value of E is 0.9214. We are going to add 0.8. Alright, so 0.9214 and we're added with 0.8. The answer is 1.7214. So this is the value of your x, 1.7214. Alright, next, let's proceed with point G. So from F to G, we move downward. So downward signifies a negative number. And there is no left or right movement, so we will just copy the value of your x, which is 1.7214. So we will now compute for the value of y. So we are going to subtract this distance, which is 2, with the current value for your 1. So 1 minus 2 is, of course, the answer is negative 1. So the value of y is negative 1. So now let's proceed with point H. So from G to H, we move to the left. So we are going to use a negative number for your x-axis. And there is no movement for your y-axis, so we will just copy the value of y, which is negative 1. So from G to H, we move 0.8 to the left. So we will just subtract this value to the current value, which is 1.7214. Then subtract with 0.8. So the answer is, we have 0.9214. Right. Next, from H to I. Okay. So from H to I, we move to the left. At the same time, we move downward. So for your x, we are going to use a negative number. And for your y, the same negative number because we move downward. Right. So let's compute first the x value. So from H to I, we move 1.0607 for your x. And the current value is 0.9214. Subtract with 1.0607. Right. And the answer is negative 0.1393. So this is your x value. Negative 0.1393. For your y, we have negative 1, which is the current value from H. So from H to I, we move downward with 1.0607. So we are going to subtract this value here to the current value for your negative 1. So we have negative 1 minus 1.0607. And the answer is negative 2.0607. This is your new y value, negative 2.0607. So now we proceed with point I to J. So from I to J, we move upward and to the left. So for your x-axis, we are going to minus the 1.0607 because we move to the left. So the current value, we are going to subtract it. Right. So we have negative 0.1393. And we're going to subtract 1.0607. The answer is negative 1.2. Alright, for your y, we move upward. From I to J, we move upward. So we are going to add 1.0607. So the current value is negative 2.0607. And we're going to add 1.0607. And the answer is negative 1. Alright. So lastly, we're going to go back to our starting point, which is at point A. So from J to A, we move to the left. So when we are going to move to the left, we are going to use a negative number. And there is no upward or downward movement, so we will just copy the value of your y-axis, which is negative 1. So we will just solve for your x value. So from J to A, we move to the left with 0.8 distance. So we're going to minus it. So we have negative 1.2 minus 0.8. So the answer is negative 2. Alright, so we are done now. So we are now ready to draw this object now in AutoCAD using these absolute coordinates. Alright, so now we're going to draw this object now using these coordinates that we solved. Alright, so this is the AutoCAD window. So before we are going to draw, I need you to remember these drawing modes that we always need to turn on for easy drawing or for easy dealing with 2D drafting. So we are going to draw in 2D drafting and annotation workspace in AutoCAD. So So always remember to turn on these drawing modes, right? There are four. So we have here the polar tracking, we have object snap tracking, and dynamic input. Again, always remember to turn on this drawing mode so that we can deal easily with the object. All right. So now, we are going to draw this object now using the line command. So we have here the line command located in your home tab. All right. So the shortcut key for your line is you can just type L and then enter so that you can create a line. L and then enter. All right. To cancel the command, you can use escape key in your keyboard. All right. So you can use enter or spacebar to execute a command in AutoCAD. All right. So now let's try to draw this object using the line. So click line, and then it will ask you to specify the first point. So our first point is -2, -1. So again, in absolute coordinates, we should always remember the hashtag symbol. This hashtag symbol represents the absolute coordinates in AutoCAD. So let's input here first the hashtag symbol. So it means we are going to input an absolute coordinates. So the first value would be your x-axis. So we have -2. All right. So to proceed with the y value, we need to input comma. Again, comma to separate x and y values. And then we will now input the y value, which is -1. All right. So just press enter to execute the command. All right, press enter. So now, as we can see, we already specified the first point. So what I'm using now is the pan command. So pan command is used to move through the drawing. So I'm using it for you to see that the first point is located in the third quadrant. So to use the pan command, you will need to press and hold the mouse wheel. All right, mouse wheel. All right, so now we are waiting for the second point, which is point B, so that we can create a segment from A to B. All right, so again, to input the second point, which is -2, +1, so specify it first with hashtag symbol. Hashtag, and then -2, comma, +1, and then press enter. All right, so now we are done with point A to B. So next, we are going to input the location of your point C. So we have hashtag -1.2, comma, we have +1, and then press enter. All right, so this is now your point C. So to zoom in or zoom out your drawing, you can use your mouse wheel, either mouse wheel forward or backward to zoom in or zoom out your drawing, and then just press and hold the mouse wheel for your pan command. All right, so from point C to D, we have here our coordinates. So specify first with hashtag, and then input the values, which is -0.1393, and then comma, 2.0607, and then press enter. All right, next, from point D to E, so we have here hashtag 0.9214, and then comma, +1, and then press enter. All right, next, from E to F, we have hashtag 1.7214, comma, positive 1, and then press enter. Right, next. From F to G, we have hashtag 1.7214, comma, positive 1, and then press enter. No. Again, we're going to use point F to G. So we have actually negative 1 value for your y-axis. So again, hashtag 1.7214, and then comma, we have negative 1 value for your y, right? Next, from G to H, we have these values. We have hashtag 0.9214, and then comma, negative 1. Then press enter. Next, H to I, we have hashtag 0.9214, then comma, negative 1. H to G to H. Sorry, it's wrong input. So we need to use these values actually. So again, so if you are going to press escape, so of course it will cancel the command. So we are going to use again the line, then specify this point here, right? So we cannot specify easily this point without turning on this object snap tracking or object snap. All right, next we have H to I. We have hashtag negative 0.1393, comma, negative 2.0607, and then press enter. All right, next, I to J, we have hashtag negative 1.2, comma, negative 1, then press enter. Lastly, for point J to point A, we have hashtag negative 2, comma, negative 1, then press enter. Oh, it's all right. Again, we have hashtag negative 2, comma, negative 1, then press enter. All right. So if you have entered or you use a wrong input, you can just use your undo and redo command for you to easily deal with your mistakes. All right, we'll just press escape key for you to cancel the command. And now we have this object now drawn using the absolute coordinates of AutoCAD.